Welcome to the Main Street Business Insight podcast,
featuring the stories of America's downtown and neighborhood entrepreneurs.
There's so much about being a Main Street business that is intertwined with what it means to be part of a community.
The impact that it has on creating jobs, occupying vacant storefronts, improving the quality of life, this is a big deal.
What advice would you give to other Main Street businesses?
Investing in yourself is the most important thing that you can do.
What was that experience like for you to reach out and, learn from others?
Any entrepreneur getting into business, I highly recommend find the people that you trust that'll tell you the thing you may or may not want to hear when you need to hear it, and who will stand by you in helping to solve your challenges.
We have some super exciting news to share with you all. Main Street America and American Express are teaming up to launch a new grant program for small business owners. The Amex Shop Small Grants program will provide an initial 250 grants of $20,000 each to eligible small business owners. The application is open now through January 16, 2026. So, small business owners, go to mainstreet.org/Shop Small Grant to see if you're eligible. If you are, we encourage you to apply for this incredible opportunity to grow, innovate, and support your local community. Find more info about the Amex Shop Small Grants program at mainstreet.org/Shop Small Grant.
Welcome to another episode of the Main Street Business Insight podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wagner, Chief Innovation Officer at Main Street America. In this show, you'll be joining me in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, a community that's faced devastating flooding in the wake of Hurricane Helene just 1 year ago in September of 2024. In this conversation, you'll hear from a local property owner, the owner of DT's Blue Ridge Java, which, by the way, is winner of one of our Backing Small Business grants supported by American Express, the local Main Street director, and, of course, city leadership. While unusual for our normal podcast format, where typically we're doing sort of a one-on-one discussion with a small business owner, we felt having a broad perspective was important to this particular story, as they share their respective experiences of loss, resilience, and recovery. In the first days after the storm, to give you some context, Spruce Pine was completely cut off. No electricity, no running water, no cell service, no internet. Yet amid the isolation and destruction, neighbors leaned on one another in ways that forged an even stronger bond. Now, this episode captures both the heartbreak of what was lost and the determination, frankly, to rebuild, even when resources are scarce and the road back is long. These stories remind us of what true community looks like when the unthinkable happens. Now, before we launch into the show, a special thanks to Sherry Adams at North Carolina Main Street Program. Sherry, I've got my water jug here, for setting this all up and joining for me for the podcast recording and tour.
All right. Well, we're here in Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Good to be here. Thanks so much for having me and for this great, wonderful group joining me. I've got a collection, a cadre of government officials, Main Street program here in North Carolina, as well as some small business owners and property owners. And just want to kick it off by saying a big thanks for allowing the Main Street Business Insight podcast to kind of crash the show here in Spruce Pine. And, a lot of people may have heard of course, Hurricane Helene. Happened last September, if I have the dates correct, 2024. And but they may not know a lot about Spruce Pine, North Carolina, and the incredible impact that the hurricane had on your community, your businesses, your property owners. And given the national impact of many national disasters, from derechos in Iowa to our tornado alleys to floods to what have you, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of come in and get your perspective on what it was really like to to not only deal with an unexpected disaster, perhaps, but how do you recover? How do you prepare and think about the future, and to be better prepared, perhaps, or what have you? And so, but before we begin, I'd like to invite the mayor maybe to tell us a little bit about Spruce Pine, North Carolina. Give us some perspective and context.
Thank you. My name is Philip Hise, Mayor of Spruce Pine. I served as mayor and councilman for years since 1996. And give you a little history on Spruce Pine. It was actually a mining town. It was formed by mining. First, it was mica, feldspar. Town was incorporated in 1913, which the mining industry brought the railroad to Spruce Pine because of the necessity of getting the mining product out of town. And so the railroad developed a line through here to actually serve our mining industry. So Spruce Pine's an old town. It's been here many, many years, and it's always been a small mining community. Our population's probably a little less than 2,300 people. Fluctuates a little back and forth. Stays pretty much the same, really, all year round. We have 4 really good seasons a year here, and we have probably the tourist.
Primarily recreation there, or what's the big tourist draw?
Well, there is recreation. Actually, the big tourist draw is the 4 seasons.
Okay.
We have beautiful springs, warm summers, and wonderful, colorful falls. And in winter, we're right next door to all the skiing industry. We get skiing and all that.
It's a little bit for
Everybody's got something to do.
So, tell us a little bit about the day of the hurricane, or the days leading up to the hurricane. What were you hearing? What were you thinking? Any concerns? What was it like being on those topics?
I don't think
Could you introduce just
David Niven from DT's Blue Ridge job in downtown, and we also go into Wild. Me and my wife. We've been here for 25 years. We're going to lowest it. 21 years in the current location. But getting back to the hurricane itself, the learnings of what was coming. I think the general consensus is none of us took it quite as seriously as we should have. Hindsight's 2024, but it was said it's going to be a bad storm. So the magnitude of what happened, I don't think anyone was quite. Anyone in the county, anyone in the town, and I don't think we could, because the magnitude of what has happened. But it's been over 100 years since it's happened. And the population is different now. The amount of structure you've got, the infrastructure you've got is a lot different than it was back then. So, getting to the point where if we knew, we all wish we knew what was in it. Okay. Could we have done anything? Well, sure, we could have done some things. Probably be more prepared. And I think, that's, you live to learn. But there's nothing we could have done as far as property to change anything there. That was Mother Nature. So, and it's as much of the storm that came before Helene that was the problem here, not just the hurricane.
So you already had high water?
We already had high water prior to getting here. Storm came in from the west, you got the Appalachians, and it turned straight north. And what happened by my understanding is the hurricane basically came right on the same path of the Appalachians. So they connected to one another, and it drew it up the same path. So we've already above flood stage before the hurricane ever got here. Because, am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. You wanted hurricane never come right. We don't bring in 6 to 8 inches of rain. And our river bed park was already under.
Now we were blessed, and people like myself, I think we're on a salt guard as much as anything else. Is Friday morning, 27th. I was downtown at 5:30 that morning. Right, waiting on some guys and riding the railroad that night. We didn't have coffee. The next morning, told them I'm making coffee. We knew it wouldn't be open for business, but told them I'd have some coffee. I went out about 5:45 and I said, okay, I better do it. It's getting bad. But at that point, the river, it was still 20 feet below the railroad track. So we had to come up quite a bit with, and I mean, we'd prepared the building, we'd done everything we could do. People like myself, the unfortunate part of what happened for everybody in state preparedness is everything. I think it was much the lack of the loss of communication in the city, because there was absolutely nothing. When the storm hit, trees went down, power went down, there was no communication whatsoever. And that took us all out. Okay. And that really, made it difficult for us. And I think that's something going forward that people will be more prepared for us to face another disaster. But myself, I got to grab my house about 9 o'clock. Now I'm 9 to 10, the street line coming through my side of the mountain. And not freeze down all over the place. There's no communication. We didn't know to the following night what had actually happened. And we're just dogs. We're only 3 miles from it. We had no idea until the following night the Spruce Pine was. And we lost our business and everything else, because even though they have flood sensors, there's no communication, so we weren't flood. So everybody's got their own story. Nearly as grave as somebody, a lot of people are. Thank God for us. I think I speak for everyone in the state is loss of life, personal loss of life for us. And I think we're blessed in that regard more than anything else. Physical loss, yes. But it's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. And I hope to never see it again. Never see it again. We're still recovering. We're going to be recovering for years.
Yeah, almost a year later.
Almost a year later, and it feels like it was last week. I'll be honest with you. Because we've all been in that mode of rebuild, get everything back to normal. And slowly it's getting back to normal. Zion's got a building downtown. Open. Things are happening. Spencer's working Main Street, for us. It's getting all that done. We've got the town manager as far as standing is concerned. And there are things happening. It's just a process.
What were some of the first things that you all had to do? Like you say, you need to know downtown, Main Street was flooded. You wake up the next day or whatever, you're able to get down there. What's some of the first responses that are occurring?
One instance, just for all with a partner who built on Willow Street. And I don't know about anybody else, first thing that I where to start. It's overwhelming. One day it's fine. The next day you've got not just the building that I own, but the whole community like that. And it's trying to figure out where to start. It's stupid as a builder. You got the door of the store, building or shovel. I mean, it's just desperation to do something probably, and I get it right. So you get a shovel and you start digging to let this wheelbarrow dump it in the street, and about 2 wheelbarrows in. This is just crazy. So you just kind of have to stop and just start figuring out what is going to happen. And thankfully, there were some volunteers that came in. Relatively quick. And with some of our first crews that came down. This took us, that was a piece that I don't know what, but when you start getting it, all of a sudden things change. And you see some possibilities, and you see some hope, and you see a way forward. But now, just the personal volunteers who just gave up from wherever they were from at the place. Came down. It could have been plenty all over the place. These were the first ones that Lower Street. They just went from store to store. Get in there to store all they could sell it, clean it. Just made you feel better. Like this is where you can get your mind around it. But
We have about 100 volunteers down there.
But, so that helped the very first month for sure to kind of start trying to figure something out, figuring out the recovery was possible. Because, we knew we would get help. One thing that it ever could win that happens. Very, very overwhelming. For me, that you think that's really turning or all of a sudden changing my mindset.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of those moments. We spent those moments every week, every day, every month. For the last 10 months. On okay, there is something. This is how. This is how. This is how. But you get the rebuild process. Once we got the rebuild process, it took months. And then now it's the hard of it. It was the hard thing because you want to make the living to happen the business. Property to happen. So that started over. But that inspiration we have right off the get like what you're talking about too, is that second template for everything. Whether it was the town working on the infrastructure and doing all that, which of course that's what they were with the first. How many months ago? Good Lord,
Still are.
Right. We are still there. We're not to where we need to be yet. Progress is progress. But there are volunteers that came to us that I'll remember for the rest of my life. I've got volunteers down my will right now that have been there for 4 months. Volunteers have been there for 4 months. So it's amazing the people you can touch, the people that touch you. And I think as a community, the brotherhood that's here now versus what was here before. Don't get me wrong, we're a great small town. I could call the town, I could call people, when they're there and they'll do anything for you. But the relationships now that we've got between businesses, between families, between, with the municipality, it's changed. Everything's changed because you realize you're all in the same boat. Okay. You might be blowing in different directions. Sometimes things get, shift a little bit, but we're all in this together, no matter what. Town was down working on a problem down in my building yesterday. And I was amazed. I called somebody in town hall, boom, 15 minutes later, 5 people brought it. And it was not an emergency. And I caught them in the tracks. But stuff needed to be done. Okay? So I think we're all in that situation. Okay, we're more of a family. Because you've got it. During the storm, we had nothing, and you were looking for water, or you were looking for a meal, or you were whatever. It has changed. It has changed us, brother. I think it's changed the people.
Talk to me if you could, and whether it's from an organization perspective or town or owner perspective, it would, from an outsider perspective, coming in, never been part of a natural disaster. How do you coordinate something like that? It seems like, to your earlier point, like I have a wheelbarrow trying to carry some dirt where I've got a big old mound or something, and I'm wondering where do you start? How does coordination come together in all of this?
Yeah, I'll talk Spencer Bost. I'm the executive director of Downtown Spruce Pine, which is our community's mainstreet organization. I think the kind of first step was taken for us by those volunteers that came here. And I'll say, when the storm hit, my mindset got shaken. And I was not doing so hot there for a while.
You were new, right?
I've been here about a year.
Okay.
And so, but it was having this community that Dave was saying to us, specifically Dave, to help shaking me out of that mindset. I think all of us needed a little shake. And whether it was volunteers from Pennsylvania with the Amish coming down, kind of helped us take that first step to, hey, this is what you need to do. Hey, this needs to happen. Those first organizations that came in really helped us get started, especially in downtown. And we talk more, we'll talk more about, on the town, sort of the government aspect. But it was really kind of helping us from there. And then from then on out, it was leaning on each other and getting chain of information down to each other. hey, did you hear about this grant? Hey, did you hear about this thing happening next week? And really just trying to put together little pieces of information in some sort.
I think the first skid steer that pulled on the lower steer. I've never been so happy to see a piece of equipment in my life. You know, we all saw a 2 feet of money for the purpose. You got everything, you got the money. But you have people, good people. I know elements that mention you know, before this storm, Matt's one of those guys, like, hey, yeah, I want to. He turned into the biggest asset down in Spruce. He did. He came down there with his trucks. Came in with people with equipment. Now literally bust through my front door.
Is this dishonor?
Local business. Does concrete work. He's got machinery, which is great. But you take that even as far as business perspective. It's those people that came down immediately. They jumped in. They saved us months of water. You know, quit and literally busted that one couple of skid steer just to get in and get the money out because that's what happened. But I think people with their strengths, Matt, coming downtown, you had people that knew logging, you had people that knew all of this stuff showing up in the neighborhoods, chainsaws and equipment to help people get it. I think, you know, the real perspective for most of us, if we didn't have people coming to our homes to help us even get out, that made a huge difference. Okay. Cutting your way out. Most people up here got their way out of wherever they live. And most of 70% of the people up here can't handle a chainsaw, right? So those people that went out into this and work their butts off to get to people, just to make sure they're okay. So you have the emergency and the things to start with, and then progressing from there. But you've got to look, you know, those people that we have so many locals and like so many volunteers, but without all of that giving you hope every day, I don't know what would happen. Because I don't know about Zan. When I first looked at it, I was like, I can't do this. It's not please get it up.
I don't know, maybe to take your question to the next step after that initial recovery, you know, where you guys from there. And so all of a sudden we did have to start looking at the damage to the buildings and what was going on, and we're going to navigate the rebuild processes and having issues and permitting and, you know, design and things of that nature. So we started waiting today. And that was, you know, we had to get some stuff, you know, we had to fix some stuff. Our local building inspection, things of that nature, I was back, putting things back, and everything was fairly well tax trucks. I picked up on it, it was some issue, but yeah, what was going to be the fact that we were going to be able to take it, going to allow the local business owner to put their building back and not be safe, be progressive, but at the same time not be overbearing, so that, you know, costs would just override everybody's opportunity to get back. So that took a little doing. But fortunately, by that time we were setting in, and so we were in those months for what happened anyway. So, you know, work those things out and started putting plans back together, got some architects involved, things of that nature, do some design and calling and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, in the meantime, there's still cleaning up in that company that can go on, so it's not like we're being stopped. But and then that pushes that one too. Then all of a sudden you start looking at a reality of how much is this stuff cost. So, you know, because you're looking at what the today's costs are to go back, and then one of the things we talk about, you know, all of us sit there and slug it. So why you're into something instead of putting it back, want to make an improvement. Volunteers, why not? This is the time. So all that kind of stuff was kind of a necessary evil, if you will, that, you know, you couldn't just jump back in. But it's probably a good thing that we had to pause and let's think a little bit. Let's look at budgets and talk about possibilities for grants and things of that nature. It might be helpful, and, you know, see where we're going to stand. So that was kind of the second process behind the cleaning up, I think, and maybe that's where you were leading toward. Is where you turn the corner and start saying, you know, and who is going to go back? And we got a couple of buildings change hands and turn ownerships and say, because first you decided they didn't want to go back, so they, you know, made a deal with somebody. So there's that. There's some renters and tenants that didn't come back. Yeah. Both of the tenants in the building that I'm part of weren't coming back. So all of a sudden it's with a demon in it. And but fortunately, I couldn't get them done fast enough. So we've been blessed that people are wanting to come back and have businesses Spruce Pine. So that's been amazing.
What are some of the challenges and obstacles that maybe again someone from an outsider like me might not think of? Okay, like we got to clean up, and then I got to talk with insurance people or what. It sounds so simple. Like it sounds so simple on paper, but what are the realities of when you're trying to recover, especially from like a business in a building perspective?
I would say in our small town was we had a few laborers that could do the work.
So like workforce and having enough people, contractors.
Y'all were all sharing the same people that were doing brick, the same people that were doing your floors. And it was like, hoping they're going to get so much of and us to come do mine. Because there's only the one guy that can do it. Or how hard it is to get sheetrock when a localized area gets hit like this, especially a town like Spruce Pine. People have literally have smaller hardware stores, but they don't necessarily have a huge amount of product to handle, sheetrock for the entire, lower street of Spruce Pine.
Interesting. You did it. I was going to spring shore for flood over so far out. That was an immediate inside of the we were the same boat in. That was a side. We all apply because you have to. But apply didn't. Really quick process.
Very quick process. Took it less way long. Yeah.
You all, I hear a lot of like, I guess I would think of it as on like recovery ground up. Like this is the community recovery. I think again, from an outside perspective, I think you think about like the state comes in, FEMA comes in, and they're doing all this stuff. And I guess like I'm trying to understand the reality for our other listeners and other communities and business owners. Like what's the real stuff that happens? Does that happen, or does it take time?
The real stuff sucks. There's no other way of looking. Okay, because you've got people, and I'll call money. Me alone, so I'm not talking about this. My economic loss is $2 million. Okay, $2 million. Now, physically, it's $600. Okay, but you got to look economically. What did we lose? The whole 9 yards. So you get to that. So how astronomical it is for one building, one business, to be at that kind of loss and trying to rebuild. Okay, so that's where grants. Main Street did a lot of work there. We've all applied for grants. We've gotten investments for us. We've gotten those things, but when you look at the astronomical money that's there, that won't be recouped for years. That will take years if I could play. And hopefully, and don't get me wrong, we have been blessed. We have been blessed. Me personally, I've been blessed. Okay, and we've got so many people fighting to get us back in business, but bills still have to be paid, right? So money's one thing. It's just accepting that. It's working with people. The times that I'm walking on the street, somebody will stick out their hand, like $100 bill in their hand, just that you'll try to support you and realize, hey, this is all I can do here for you. Volunteers, we still got volunteers in my space right now, 10 months later. That's a blessing. And so realizing to be grateful. It's just Matt keeps telling me to be grateful. And I am really, but I'm just hard-nosed. I want things better. I want things the way they were, and it will never be the same. But we can make it better. It's with people like them. It's with these guys here. We can make it better. For my place, but it's going to be better than it ever been. It's going to be. It is. But accepting the things that you can change and changing the things you can, right? We've got to be able to do that. And I've never been an animal disaster before. Never want to go through one again. Okay? I'm too old. I don't want to do it. But it was that strenuous. It's strenuous still to this day. But things are looking better every day. They are. And I'm talking them. So Phil.
Because go back to seeing the process through. I mean, we could debate why it's happened for 500 years, but it did. As a man of faith, I didn't know then and still don't know how to have this, what the Lord is going to bring in. But I know it's going to be okay. And I know individually we'll be fine. community, we're going to be okay. And can't answer how it's going to happen, but I just know that provision will be there for whatever we need at the time that we need it. And if it doesn't come, then maybe we need to reevaluate what it is to do. You know, the community, you're right, it's going to be the same. But at the same time, that's fine. It'll be better. You know, there's some changes that needed to be made. It's no avenue that I would fit to do it, but I probably wouldn't have if I didn't have to. And a lot of other people would either we get comfortable in their situation. Whereas I think, you know, what we have to do is embrace the opportunity toward the future and what this town, not that it was a bad town, but how we can change it and grow. And not just plan for next year, but plan for this to these guys, but the next 25, 50 years or whatever, where Spruce Pine in the future that it can hit. We've got a blank slate to work with. And, you know, again, the most fortunate thing that we have sitting among us is there was no loss of life. Other sides, that's a change you can't do anything about. But anything else other stuff, it's just stuff. I mean, it really is. I don't mean to downplay that, but whatever. At the same time, it'll be, you know, it's just stuff. We're fortunate here already. So
what is the sort of future look like for Spruce Pine, both from a community and a business perspective, as you do recover and you rebuild? What are you putting in place that may be different or help in case there is something else that comes again? Are you thinking through that and where you build or where you operate your business or where the community, what's the community, Main Street? You talk a little bit about what the future looks like.
Well, with the town, mitigation. Move these facilities to where they're less likely to be damaged, which is a slow process, which with FEMA slows down everything. FEMA wants you to put it back like it was, but then if you want to mitigate, that's another portion of the plan, of the pie that you've got to deal with them, it delays everything. But we was talking about normal, and the old normal's gone. We got to adjust to the new normal. It's going to be better than ever. A lot of things is going to be better than it ever was. We lost a lot. We will eventually, if God's will. We'll get it back. We'll rebuild our park. We'll rebuild our walking bridge that everybody loves in town. It's going on. We will rebuild our maintenance. You know, first thing that hit me on Friday afternoon after the storm, my service or my public works director finally got to my things. And I said, well, he said, we have no water coming to our water treatment plant, any water facility we have. It looks like we've totally lost our sewer. I said, well, where's the boys? He said, I have no idea. Communication can't get to none of our people. I said, well, let's mean you go down to the maintenance facility. Okay. It's gone. We didn't even have a pipe fitting. We didn't have a pipe prepared. We didn't have nothing except it was what was on the pickup trucks was in it. Gone. The whole maintenance facility was gone. Every piece of equipment we had in it. So when you look at that to where we've come now, and we don't have a maintenance facility yet. We're going to have one. If it floods there, we'll say more about the future. What's that?
And what does that look like in terms of thinking about like resiliency into the community?
Yeah, so I guess for me, I just try to, say where I kind of came into this puzzle at. We'll try to do this. So, ironically, my first experience with the town and Helene was as a volunteer. So, I'm from Morganton, grew up there. My mom is from Yancey County next door, so neighboring communities, and we vacation up here all the time. So, I was up here roughly 13 days after the storm when we could get a clear pass. And all it was just shoveling, running a chainsaw, shoveling. So we came out of camp and stayed for about 8 days, and that was the best we could do. And the funny thing is when I left, I said, I really wish there was something more that I could do. And the age-old adage, careful what you wish for. about a month later, I saw job opportunity. The manager decided to take retirement and move on. And so, anyway, long story short, Philip convinced me it'd be a good idea to come up here. So I'm grateful for it and thankful to be here. But the future is bright and prosperous, in my opinion. There's so many good opportunities in a town that was already so well established and so well partnered together in so many ways. For the FEMA stuff, there was a lot of setbacks at the early onset. FEMA's average response time for natural disaster by their policy is 24 to 48 hours. I think it was the 15th or 16th day before anybody boots on ground for the first response team actually was seen in Mitchell County. As far as any funding goes, it was actually when I started coming at the intermittent time about the first of the year. So there was a lot of delay on the initial. Now we had teams coming in from Army Corps and other stuff like that that were getting things going. But to Philip's point, the town lost its raw water intake, which is where your primary source of water comes from. Their wells were down, which was the auxiliary water system. The wastewater treatment plant was completely offline. The public works maintenance facility was completely washed away. So two parks were completely washed away. So the level of devastation, when I came, some of the early numbers were estimated at between 20 and 30 million. It's probably what we're looking at the damages, but as of recent, was probably not much 50 million. Just for what the government's responsibilities are between, and it's not just flood damage. We got a lot of slides, we got a lot of sinkholes, we got a lot of different other issues that were related to the water damage. But for future planning, we've got a lot of resiliency planning in place. We're doing comprehensive stormwater mapping and we're existing in the future planning systems. We're doing a comprehensive sewer mapping and resiliency study, as well comprehensive water resiliency study. We've got more engineering firms I can probably keep my head around working on magnitude of problems, solutions for us today. Things are starting to move along fairly reasonable with FEMA now. Executing projects with them is a very huge task. They break everything down into every individual project. We have like 77 projects with town. So it's basically like 77 mini grants. And they want everything from GPS coordinates to VIN numbers on vehicles that you lost to before and after photos. The level of detail is seriously major. But for downtown, we've got a lot of projects that were on the books before Helene, and we have picked those back up. Downtown Streetscape Master Plan stuff that we're wrapping up. Main Street's involved in that program. Stormwater management in a proper sense with actual attention and things. We're looking at a lot of it. So, we got a good road ahead, but I couldn't think of a better town to be doing this stuff in Spruce Pine. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I wish, and I'm not on camera, but I wish you guys, I'm in awe, frankly, of the community and how you all responded. It's just frankly amazing. Two things I want to close out with. I'd love to hear a little bit more from the two of you relative to, you see how a town was preparing and thinking about resiliency. Is there anything that you did in the building or you're thinking about in your business that is different than what it was before because of the flood? Things that you're putting in place or doing as a result?
Floors are all kind of it's easier to clean up. Oh, I don't know the property owner. I mean, it's multiple properties. It's the one several houses floors. There's not a lot we could do to mitigate what could happen. Insurance wise, I can't afford what it would take to insure the property. It's the magnitude that it needs to be insured. That's all great. Fine, until you got the building. Same reason people would have flood insurance before. is, you know, the only ones out there that'll do it is the government. I'll be honest with you.
What exactly? No, what do you have to do? None of us were in the floodplain. So I couldn't, you only wouldn't have oversight before, but when you saw that was later, it was,
But the one insurance plan we get is through the government, is the only flood insurance that is available to us to actually buy it. Because no local, there's a couple, I say local, that's not like me, private entities that do flood insurance, but they will not touch us. Now we have to flood. So preparing ourselves, I don't know, there's not a lot of ways we can prepare ourselves except have faith and it won't happen again.
prepare so in horse street or not, it's pretty good as far as making changes in the building. You know, we saw some things in our building that, given the opportunity, we thought, well, make it a little nicer. So we did do that. You know, while we're into it, was totally, might as well go ahead and make some changes. Like, put a roof in the floor, so I think it's that nature, move some stuff around. I did a few little things cosmetically, and then, you know, just went ahead and forward, like, for instance, every floor on Lower Street, I guarantee will be polished concrete, some kind of box, you know, just in case, you know. But you know, we improved this full front, relations brick up, changed a little later, put insulating glass in, panes began over way back, this single pane glass, and it's all safety and stuff like that now. So you know, those like improvements that we made. That's kind of probably wouldn't have done if it had. Since it is, since you're here, let's go. I think I'll have state that he gets work on his building and change some stuff on it.
I mean, we did a lot, you know, change stuff across the building. It's all brand new. Everything in there, ground 8 feet up. So, you know, it had some good people giving good advice, stuff that we did change. The glass looks to be better than it ever was. We've got more brick than we've ever had before. We've got more building stuff. So, you know, those things are great. You know, and Sam's right. We would not have done what we weren't forced to do. Okay, so that part is good. That part is good. Fire protection, blah blah blah. There are improvements that have been made, but I don't. You know, so the future. I think the future is going to be great. I think, you know, like everybody else in this room, I think the future for Spruce Pine is going to be wonderful. We have things to navigate that we can't control. Just like I can't control what's happening in my state right now, waiting on members to get done. But with the parkway situation, we depend on tours. So, you know, the parkway is going to be repaired. You know, we have to have access. But I think it's going to make us all more appreciative of what we've got going forward. And in that respect, I don't know about the gentleman sitting here, gives me a little bit more sense of peace as far as that's concerned, the level of help that we've gotten, the whole 9 yards. But, you know, I know initially what this storm brought, what you cannot prepare for. People in Texas have been going through it. People in Virginia have been going through the same thing. Down in New Mexico, the same thing. Is you don't believe it till you see it, and you don't ever want to see it. Because it's changed us forever. In that initial shock, I still, every morning, I count my blessings when I put on my boots, and, you know, I cry a little bit, okay, because we're tired of it. But I can remember the first time I got downtown after that storm and could not believe what we actually saw. You know, and you cannot prepare for stuff or something. So yeah, moving forward, we're blessed. We're blessed.
This has nothing to do with the damn angle, but I was silver lining, you know, you always find them. We had a little footbridge that went across the river, and we were beating that at the end, trying to figure what it wasn't 88 fine, it was old. It was, the reality was it probably was going to need to be torn down. I was all over the place about it. I get it, you know, hard up, but we needed it. The storm took it out. So it took some stuff off the table. Three demos. So that was good. But you know, that's the kind of thing. When the bridge does go, then there won't be the controversy, and it'll be nice. It'll be new, and it'll be here for a long time. And everything that goes with it. So you know, like I said, you just got to find a silver lining in there somewhere. And sometimes that could be a worse for you.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
I want to close out the show is we always do a little bit of advice. And I love that we have different roles played here from city to public official, Main Street, business owner, property owner. And I wonder if you could all think about one piece of advice you'd give someone else in your position in another community that at some point in time might be facing the same thing that you all went through. What's a piece of advice you'd give them?
Embrace the process. Let's go up day one, and learn how to manage your normal day-to-day life alongside of what else is going on. You can't press everything out here, put yourself aside in order to focus on what's ahead of you. You got to walk those things together, or else it'll take you. Just embrace the process, and stay with them.
Mm-hmm. For the very good advice.
Learn patience. It's going to take a while to get used to this. First few days, first few weeks, I buzzed here and buzzed there. Finally sat down one night and just had a good old talk with the Lord about it. A different attitude than I did.
Say trust each other. We're all do the same thing. We all want something better for our community. Talking with each other, and trusting that we all want that. It's going to take a lot for us.
And you're not alone. Everyone, we all have our battles. And when you get to natural disaster like this, you might think your battle's different or worse than somebody else's. It's not. We all have our own individual issues that we've had to deal with in this. And coming together as a community has been the greatest thing, because you cannot walk this path by yourself. There is absolutely no way you could do it. And you be grateful for what you got and get some walkie talkies with good backers and happen with the rest. Because communication was the hardest thing at main problems. Communication was number one thing. We've been so blessed, and I had people fed me and my family 2 weeks straight. Boy, that here at the Big Wind Lodge, love his heart, fed us. But the best thing was we could get up there and have cell phone signals. It was the only way we could talk to anyone. It was the only way. You could not do it because it was fun. So there's a lot of fine lines, but don't overreact. If you're in a natural disaster, you can't overreact, but you gotta count the blessings and of neighbors, and embrace it. You've got to embrace it.
For the first few days of the storm, everybody, how many days was it? 17, 18, 21 days without power.
Yeah.
So everybody had food and meats and stuff in the freezer. So everybody comes, somebody's home there. You cook this food. And everybody coming up. My daughter, her son-in-law, had people at her house day and night, 20-some days. We took everybody's food today because it's going to run. Everybody got together and learn each other and know your next.
Tragedy in the communities come together.
Yeah.
Good to see it. I applaud all of you and commend all of you for all the great things you're doing for each other and for Spruce Pine. Thanks so much for joining the show. And it's so good to listen to your story. It's so powerful and really it's to the heart. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
What we heard today from Spruce Pine is both sobering and inspiring. The damage from Hurricane Helene is still visible as I toured through the community, and the challenges of recovery remain steep. But the voices of this community, from property owners, small business leaders, and local officials, shows us that strength comes from depending on one another and not always from outside. No matter how small or limited in resources, there's tremendous power and ability when we come together as a community. Spruce Pine serves as an amazing example of what we can accomplish as a Main Street. So as I wrap up here, I want to acknowledge and congratulate as we near the reopening of DT's Blue Ridge Java after a full year, a full year of restoration. It's a milestone that represents not just one comeback, but the spirit of an entire town determined to rise again. Thank you for joining us and listening to Spruce Pine's story. May it remind us of the power of resilience, connection, and community in the face of disaster. If you want to learn more about disaster planning and recovery, last year, Main Street America published our Disaster Recovery and Resilience Toolkit, which is chock full of case studies, tools, and resources for communities and small business owners. We'll put a link in the show notes, and you can just simply download. As always, if you're a business owner, and likewise to my place professional colleagues, I hope this episode has provided plenty of new insights, solutions, and inspiration. And as consumers, please continue to support your local small businesses and, of course, tell their stories. They're so important to our local and national economies. Most importantly, they promote and provide quality living to the places we all call home. Remember to check out our growing library of podcast recordings and other related small business trainings that you'll find at our Main Street America YouTube channel. Thanks for listening. And if you don't mind my continued soapbox, if you'd rather hear these stories and not the constant and singular drumbeat of global business leaders, please hit the subscribe button, rate and review us, send us a note, and go ahead and share with your friends, family, neighbors, pets, colleagues. So until next time, thanks for listening and all of your support.